If you've ever been using Firebase and you've come to the conclusion, this is really great, but I wish it was just kind of, how do I put this, better? Today we have the solution. The solution is PocketBase. So this morning, for the first time, I booted up PocketBase. This is something I've been wanting to try out for quite a while. Today I finally got around to it, and I went ahead and built a tiny little example app. I self-hosted a whole custom deployment of it, added my own API route, Dockerized it, did all this stuff. So today I kind of want to break down my sort of first impressions using it, how it felt, the sort of DX. I have a full demo. I open sourced all of it. So down below you'll get a link. I have a Git repo that contains a fully built out demo of PocketBase and a little React app that's using some authentication. I didn't go too deep into the client side demo because that's not really the point of this video. And honestly, the point isn't even to get into too deep into the crazy features. It's more just a first impressions, give you a good idea of how this really works and the sort of pros and cons of using it. So before I go deeper into all of that, make sure that you guys, if you are not already, that you hit subscribe. We are going to be doing tons, and I mean tons, more GoLang content over the next couple months, all the way through February 28th. We're gonna have something brand new every single day, so make sure you guys are subscribed for that. And without further ado, let's talk about PocketBase. So when you land on the homepage for PocketBase, you're gonna get this really nice little landing page. And if we go into the documentation, something you're gonna notice that's a little different from a lot of these platforms you're probably used to is there's no like login button, there's no sign up. And the reason for that is because in order to host PocketBase, you have to do it yourself. And when I first booted this up and first messed with this, I was kind of confused for a while because you're going to realize very quickly that this doesn't work the way a lot of traditional things work, and it's a little different, but I think that the different is good. It's good different. So if you go to Firebase, you have to log in here, and here we just get open source docs, and we have to actually either download the executable or actually run it through a custom Go app. So one thing to note before I get too deep into this is this warning up here. This is still in active development and is not at 1.0 yet. It is a super promising technology, but again, it's not fully deployed yet, so I wouldn't use this in production or anything super critical, but it's absolutely something worth investing your time in to kind of mess with, because I think when we're in the future, when I'm trying to do some super quick MVPs, or if I need to do something smaller scale, like run an email list or something, this is a really great solution for that. I wouldn't run some enterprise grade app on this, but if you're trying to run a side project or some smaller scale internal thing, this is a really promising option that I think does what Firebase does, but better. And the reason it does it better is because A, it's open source, B, it's going to be way faster because of the way it's set up. So under the hood, PocketBase is using SQLite, and this will make it super performant. If I go into this over here, so this is my live PocketBase console, I'll talk about this more later, but sort of what we're going to get here is you're going to see all of this data is being hosted within a SQLite instance on my backend. What's unique about SQLite is it doesn't work the same way that Postgres or MySQL does, in that you would have like a separate database instance. This is just being run on a little storage bucket within my app. So when I'm hosting this app, well, first of all, it can't be serverless. So that is one thing that you have to take into consideration. I mean, I guess you could maybe wrangle it and like point it to a static server, but you're not going to do that. In reality, it's going to be servered. This is going to have to be deployed to a server that's going to be constantly running. And the reason for that is because we need to spin up our CPU, our RAM, all that stuff. But we also need to spin up a volume of storage, which is where our SQLite is going to go. So instead of going to some separate instance of our SQL or our MySQL or Postgres instance or whatever, that's going to be run on disk, which is actually going to make this really fast. So they say in their FAQ that they're not going to support other databases, and the reason for this is because SQLite is already performant enough, and it makes it really easy and quick to set up, because all you have to do is just put that little volume on your storage, put that little volume into your app, and then you host everything there. And it's pretty easy to actually deploy all this, as I'll show you later on. So getting into the actual, interface of PocketBase, what does it offer for us? So it gives us, first of all, it'll give us user management. So here you can see a list of all the users I have. I made these 2 fake users, and this is actually my production instance. So this will be deleted and taken down before this video goes live. But right now you can see this admin page. I have these 2 fake users. Then I have this test collection. If I wanted to create a new collection, I can go in here. I can pick out what fields I want. Let's say I want to have a number field, and we'll call this age, and then make minimum is 0, max is 10,000, 1,000 or something. Make sure it's unique. This is dumb, it doesn't actually matter. Put in a post name, and then we can create this. So then we're gonna have this new collection with all of this stuff in here. If we add a new record in here, we have to put in our age of this, create, and then it's gonna give me my validation stuff here, so we'll make that 234, create, And there you go. So this is very similar to Firebase or Supabase or any of these sort of well, I guess base products that are out there right now. Is you have your collections and then you have your users in here. This is just a special collection within these. On the client, as I'll show you later, you interact with these it's a little different than a lot of other ones, but I actually kind of like the way they do it. They sort of just treat them like another collection. So our users are in here. Over here, we can get some nice logs. So I'll show you what requests I'm making. So on my client, I made some requests earlier. Then we have nice admin, some admin panel stuff in here. Yeah, so this will also allow us to do some file uploads. So if we don't give it an S3 storage space, I'll just put them on the disk right now that I'm using. And I only allocated a gig for this, so I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to link some external S3 so you can put all your information in there. Very simple. You can do mail. You want to set up like your email server. There are a million different services out there to do that. You can sync your data. You can set up OAuth providers. I didn't do that here, but this is pretty trivial. All you need to do is just go in here, enable it, and then put in your client ID, client secret. You can get that from Google. Very simple stuff in here. Then one of the really nice things they give us is administrators. So I have my admin user in here, which is me. I can go ahead and add a new admin. Very easy to do. So all of this stuff just gives us a nice sort of backend as a service. This is the basic. This will give us the ability to log users in, do CRUD on some data set that we need for our application, upload files, send emails, pretty much everything you need for an MVP in most use cases, and it's very similar to Firebase, but the difference here is A, it's super performant, it's written in Go. B, it is super easy to set up and run. All you really have to do is just download it and then run it. And then C, it's going to be really, really cheap to host because all you have to do is put it on some instance. And as they note within their FAQ, without optimizations, PocketBase can easily serve 10,000 plus concurrent and persistent real-time connections on a cheap $6 VPS. So really not that hard, to really cheap, really easy, really great. So let's get into the code of an actual example and really dive into what this will do. So there are two different ways that you can actually download and run PocketBase. One of them is you can go to the documentation page like I did earlier, and you can download one of these actual binaries. So you just download the binary and then run it via /PocketBase serve, or you can run this through an actual Go app. And that's what I elected to do. And the reason why I did that is because you can actually use PocketBase as a pseudo framework. So if you need to get some custom API routes up in a pinch that go beyond the simple CRUD from a collection or whatever, that's really easy to do. So the reason why I wanted to do that is I wanted to showcase that API route. So in here, in my main, all I have to do is I have to do app : pocketbase.new. I'm importing the PocketBase package from PocketBase core. Really basic stuff here. And then once I've initialized my app, the really nice thing that we can do is we can then add stuff to it. So I get this pointer to a PocketBase instance, and then I can do app.on before serve, some boilerplate. And then the key right here is I am adding a GET request right here. So now I'm adding to my PocketBase instance pb-demo/API/hello. This is just a hello world endpoint, but you can put whatever you want in here. And if I go back to my URL here, and if I grab this URL, then let's paste this over here. And if we do pb-demo/API/hello, and we hit enter, we're going to get hello world. And that is because we added this custom API route so that anytime we want to extend our functionality, it's as simple as just putting some stuff in here. Now, this makes it a little more complicated to deploy, but luckily I put together a Docker file for that. So all we need to do then is just add this, and then do error : app.start, log.fatal, normal stuff. So we start our app here. To run this in dev, all we need to do is we just need to do, I made this task file. Someone recommended this earlier. Super, really cool. This is like make, but nicer. So basically all you have to do is go run main.go, pass in the serve argument, and then pass in where you want to host it. So I'm just going to do task start. When I do that, it'll take a moment. It takes a minute to warm up here because it's building a pretty massive application, but it builds within a second or so, and then I can go to localhost at 8080. Then this is my admin page. I could log into this, and it'll be the same thing that you see up in prod. So you're going to get the same instance in local and prod. The only difference is what the underlying data is, and you need to make sure that that underlying data is safe and secure, which is one of the big things because it's not a separate database instance, but as long as you have like backups on for your volumes, you're good. And I could do a deeper dive on this later if you want me to. But so I put all that together here. Very simple to get this server up and running. And then really the cool stuff here is that's it. So this is ready to deploy. Before I go over to deployment, I want to kind of talk about the client app I put together here, and then we'll go ahead and talk about deployment and then my sort of thoughts. So first of all, the client. So the client itself right here, this is just a very simple Vite React app. The front end I'm best with is React. I mean, that's how it is. So all I did is I set an environment variable here, which is just the URI for my PocketBase instance. Here I have it set to PocketBase first impressions.fly.dev. You'll notice that that matches this up here. So all we have to do is set wherever we want this to be. If you're in localhost, the README has instructions on how to do all of this, but you can set your if you set it to be 127.0.0.1:8080, this will link it to this. So this local instance running right here, so that'll connect it there. All you have to do is just pass in whatever you want it to be. So the easiest way to put this in prod would just be to have this as an environment variable, and then you switch it out based on your environment. Pretty simple stuff. Then within our app, all we need to do is just create a new instance of PocketBase. They provide a really nice JS SDK right here. We just do pb equals new PocketBase. We import our environment variable, and then we're off to the races. So all I did down here is I made a stupidly basic React app. I have this down here. So basically all the app is, it just has, we're just checking whether or not we're logged in. So I'm going to do pb.authStore.isValid. You're going to have to plug this into state yourself. This is not a front end video or a tutorial on how to do front end stuff, but it's just something to keep note of. Then we go to this, we're going to get email, password. So we look back at the code here. Really, this is just basic React form stuff, nothing important here. Right now we're logged out, so what I'm going to get is this form. I have my state up there, then the key is going to be this sign up button. So let's start by signing up. So what we're going to do, if you've ever used Firebase, is this is very, very similar. We're going to do PocketBase.collection, we're going to get users, then we're going to create a new user. The fields you have to pass in here are the email, password, and then the password confirm. So if I go ahead and just put in test@test.com, and I'll just put in a password, whatever it is, I don't really care. Then we hit sign up. This will go ahead and it'll take a moment here, but then it's going to say you are now logged in. I hit OK and it'll say logged in. So what's actually happening there is I'm just running a chain of callbacks. Basically, I just do pb.collection users.create. Then I want to once I create the user, I need to sign into the user. So I do PocketBase.collection users. Then I auth with password, pass in email and password. Then finally, I say we're logged in and set logged in to true. Now, in the real world, you would probably want to wrap this in like a React query type thing, make this a lot nicer. I find that front-end callback hell stuff gets really gross, but this is a super basic example, and this is not a front-end video. So yeah, that's all you need to do to actually sign up. Then logging in is as simple as you just need to pass in email, password, and then do you just do auth with password, email, password. And then back up here within our logged in function, we just have a pb.authStore.clear, which is going to set us to logged out. So if I go ahead and hit log out, we're going to be logged out. So this is some really basic stuff. The way you would read and write out of a collection is about the same. This is not a super detailed this is not a tutorial on how to actually mess with like the client stuff. That's just to give you an example of how it works. The documentation here is excellent. No real issues. It's pretty simple. If you've ever used Firebase or any library that messes with data, this will still make a lot of sense to you. Not a big deal. So that's all I really have for the client. So let's talk about how you build and deploy this. And this is one of the most interesting things. And I think one of the things that's, at least for me mentally, was kind of tricky to wrap my head around. Now that I get it. It's pretty easy, but at the time it was weird. So the first thing we need to think about is we need to actually take our little main.go, which is going to have our PocketBase instance, and we need to put that up onto some sort of cloud container image. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using fly.io. This is their homepage. This is a really nice little quick deployment platform. It's kind of like, I would probably rate this in between, like this is closer to an AWS type thing. It gives you more control, but it's still very user-friendly, very nice to use, super DX focused. Really like their stuff, and I wanted to just use this to deploy. So what I did in here is I was able to create a new instance. I have all this stuff up here. This is not going to be a deployment tutorial, but I linked the guides that I followed, and basically all you have to do is set up Fly. And once you set up Fly, you can just follow the stuff I have within the README here, which is basically just you need to install the command line, initialize the app, create the storage volume, and then upload it. So we're going to be uploading this to Fly control. And the key things that we need to have here is we need to have a way to compute and run our app, and then we need a storage volume for our app. So if you look over here at my dashboard, I have volumes, and this volume is going to contain my database and my SQL and all that stuff. So my SQL as in my SQL, not my SQL as in my SQL. You get what I mean. So This in here is going to contain the SQLite instance. This is the persistent storage that as I deploy over and over again, it's not going to overwrite this storage. This will persist throughout forever. If the app crashes, this will not go away. And that is super important because we have user data and client data on there. We can't lose that. We can't lose that data. So this needs to persist in a separate volume. So within our fly.toml, you can go ahead and just create that and then mount. I'm mounting pb data to app/pb data. And if you look within my local instance here, I have this directory pb data. This is what PocketBase is going to create every time you run it to store all of the data. So this data.db contains all the information from my local PocketBase instance. So that's where all that's actually being stored. So with all that said, we need to go ahead and build our app. I did that with the Docker file. You can just use this. Nothing fancy here. All I'm doing is just creating a GoLang instance, adding some basic build tools that we need in here, stuff like GCC and stuff like that. I go ahead and set my work directory to be app. I copy in my go.mod and sum. I go ahead and download all of the packages. That usually takes a minute because there's a lot of them. Then we go ahead and copy all of our Go files. In this case, there's just one. I build it, and then I set my output binary to be pb-build. I expose 8080. Then finally, we run this with /app/ then we finally just run this with /app/pb-build serve, and then we want to bind this to localhost 8080. You actually don't need to use a dynamic port on Fly. Fly is really nice that way. You can just specify down here that our internal port is going to be 8080, so I don't have to actually go in and read some environment variable. It just works. So that's how we are actually building our app. And then once we have it built, all we need to do is flyctl deploy, and it will deploy our app. So once it's deployed, we will have our storage allocated, our app generated and built. One key thing to note here is I have my work directory is app, so that means that my PocketBase instance is going to be app/pb-build. That means that I need to make sure that my storage is in the right directory, and that's the reason why we're adding a mount here that says the destination is /app/pb data, because remember, our PocketBase instance is going to be in that app directory. We want to make sure that we have a mount to our data store here that's going to look just like this within there, because when we actually create this volume name of pb data, that's going to be just mounted in whatever void they put it in. I don't really know under the hood, but we need to make sure that that source goes to the right destination. Otherwise, nothing too fancy. It'll get deployed, it'll do all the provisioning for us, and if we just go to the URL it gives us here, it's going to get a not found, but all we need to do is /_, and we will be on our admin page. So that's the sort of general overview of PocketBase, getting it deployed, doing all that stuff. Super easy once you sort of wrap your head around it, and I think this has huge potential. So with all that said, getting into my sort of thoughts on this, I'll be sort of brief here, but I think that this has tremendous potential for the future. Obviously, it's not ready to be used yet, as they say within their documentation, that it's in active development, backward compatibility is not guaranteed. Wait a little bit before we really use this, but I think that this has tremendous potential to be that sort of, I think that'll fill the Firebase niche super well. Because I think for me, the sort of place I've landed on my opinion with Firebase type services is if you're going to have a super complex app that needs to scale big time and do really crazy stuff, you don't want to be using some really cheap, crappy NoSQLite database type thing. NoSQL is not bad. I think NoSQL databases are good, like MongoDB or Dynamo, but if you need a NoSQL database for like a serious load or something like that, you don't want that to be in Firebase. So I think that Firebase sort of falls in the realm of if you need to do something quickly and easily, you want to just throw something up in a weekend, get a minimum viable product out there to test an idea, test a new startup, get an email list out there, something like that. I think that's where the sort of Firebase, Supabase stuff comes in really well. I think PocketBase slots beautifully into that niche, and honestly, I think it does it better than the other two. I think that Firebase and Supabase, for where I would use them, they're kind of overkill. I don't need them. This super lightweight, super easy to use, super clean and fast Go instance with a SQLite database that I can host myself in a tiny little $6 droplet, that's what I want to use. That's so much better than dealing with all the crap with Firebase, because I don't want to scale an app with Firebase, and I wouldn't want to scale an app with PocketBase, but it's great for the sort of niche it fits into, where you have, I think competent devs who really know what they're doing and want to take shortcuts. I wouldn't learn on this. I wouldn't learn backend development on PocketBase or Firebase or Supabase or any of this stuff, and I'll talk about that in another video, but I would personally really like to use this for prototyping. If I want to put out a prototype, this is where I do it. So getting authentication, database, file storage, and an admin dashboard done in about 5 minutes once you know what you're doing and you have this template, and you guys now do because I put it together. And really, this only took me a few hours. I started this around, let's see, it's 5 right now. I started this around 3. I mean, it took 2 hours. It was not hard at all. It's really basic stuff, but it's still extremely powerful and I think extremely worth your time. So if you are a backend dev and you're looking for some super lightweight solution, I highly recommend taking a look at PocketBase. Give it a try. Also give Fly a try. I have been using them more lately. I think that this is a really nice hosting platform. I'll probably put more backends on here. Them and Railway and some other stuff are really great platforms. I'll talk about hosting in the future. But as far as my verdict on PocketBase, really cool stuff, really bright future, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So hopefully this helped you out. If you made it this far, thank you as always. Have a great day.